Alright, so the first thing we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to get some images from the designer. The first one is a visual image, so there's a lot of good reference stuff we can use for purposes of painting and also making the best of our lines, which is kind of what this is all about. So the next thing we'll do is we'll bring in the horse reference image which the designer provided. I'm going to turn this into a bunch of vectors, so we'll preview that. Pay attention, it's got these lines that indicate the outside of the shape. You want to make sure that you're actually getting the right size shape in this case. So right here we've got two different things happening. There is the nodes that were created and the image that's still there. So what we want to size up is the nodes that were created, and again, make sure that you've got the right size that you want, because it's all including those lines everywhere. And then at this point you need to use these lines, and it did the wrong thing, didn't it? No, it didn't. It just had to ungroup them. So it's still got all these lines, but they're not clean. They're not doing what I want them to. So you'll have to go through a series of node edits, connecting, removing lines, and a little bit of cleanup to get this the way you want. So we'll spend some time on that, and then we'll join at the next step. All right, in this step we've got our image based around our vectors here. Also, you want to size up the reference image that you're using here, because this is important for this step and making sure that everything lines up. So for this next bit, I'm going to do, let's try an arc. So I'm going to do an arc, and I'm going to follow where the reins are. I'm going to do another one here. Maybe that goes to here. And so I'll exit out of that command. And now if I look at my reference image, yeah, I'm close, but I could use a little bit of adjusting here. But really the idea here is that I'm going to use these lines, and I'm going to use these lines to provide breakpoints in my Luons so that I can break up this shape and maximize where all my parts are. And make sure you get approval with the scenic designer or the scenic charge here, so that you can make sure that these lines work for them. But they may not even have to touch up with JC or sanding or anything like that, because they're going to use these lines anyway to create these reins. But just make sure that all of this works for your scenic designer as to where you choose to put your brake lines. Alright, so at this point I've kind of broken up my shape into more areas so that I have those to reference. And now to sort of help put it all back together, just some simple lines across, and you can hit spacebar here to go from one to the next very quickly. That one didn't really go across, but you get the idea here. I'm just going to move it up so it's splitting the two areas, right? And from here I'll have these marks cut on my CNC file, and then I can very easily put things back together. Additionally, I'm going to label my pieces so that I can have them all, as they come off the machine, I can know what they are. And this is going to be online vectors, or maybe the VCarve bit. These will certainly be online vectors, very shallow, but a whole bunch of them. Now remember, this is all the face of this horse, so the painter will not like it if I give him this way. So at some point you're going to want to mirror these images. I'm not going to create a mirrored copy, but I'm going to take the whole thing to the right. And perhaps you want to do this before you start applying the labels, because now the label I did, of course you could just take that and flip it. But you want all of these lines on the back so that all your lining up it's done on the back, and then the painter has something very clean to work with. So just repeat this process throughout these different segments, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, at this point we're going to look at framing. So I've got my Luan layout, but I've removed those lines to another layout so that I can just focus on where the break lines are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this line, and that's my outside shape. I'm going to create an inward offset vector, same vectors, and just go 2 inches inside. So now I've got this additional line here. So I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to do it in node edit mode. You'll notice that there's a bunch of extra nodes. So hitting D for delete will start to clean that up. And you can see where you can start making some choices about where and what you want to keep. And also, this is when you're going to start saying, well, this is how I'm going to dictate my framing. So here I need to create some breaks for framing. I want to go on the other side of a break line for Luan, right? So I incorporate my framing to span across that. And I'm just going to create a line there and maybe one up here, and I can call this a piece F1. And so I can label as I go, and it's a good idea to do so. So F1, and then I can start to make choices about where my next framing piece will be. As I get over here, I want to see, okay, my outside's good, but I've also got this interior piece that needs support. So maybe at this point, I need to go back into my node edit mode and select that line. You can see again I've got a whole bunch of extra nodes. I'm going to go in, select all those, D for delete. I'm going to grab this one and bring it over here roughly to where that vector line is going to be. I'm going to select all of these, delete all of those. I'm going to grab that one, bring it down to the end. Hit S for smooth, and you can turn that into a Bezier so that you can follow your shape. So you want to follow your shape so that you can do the same thing. And then find break lines where you want to break this shape, but then you're supporting all of that Luan. Last thing you need to do as you're planning this out is also incorporate framing that covers your break lines. So I still need to support this seam here, which is my Luan seam, in some type of shape. So again, I need a piece there, and making sure that I don't lose track of the fact that those are framing pieces, and just go around the whole shape. Alright, so now that you've got your different framing pieces all dictated, some of them might have joined lines, some of them might still need to join your lines. You got your segments. Sometimes those segments where you broke and it was just a single vector line, you want to copy that and paste it again and then add it to another thing. So we've got this one, and I'm going to shift, I'm going to select this line here, and I'm going to join those into a part. And so now those join into a part. So now I think I want to select these two parts. I'm going to Control C, Control V, and create a copy of that, and bring that copy over out of the boundary area so that I can keep track of all of my components. That way, when I get to the point where I lay them out into the material space for cutting, that I can optimize which pieces go where, and then you can grab them, you can 0 and 9 to turn them, and other ways to spin them around. Alright, as we close to the end here, you'll have your different pieces, and you'll want to lay them out in the paper, the sheet material space. So you can do this in a couple of ways. You can either drag your components yourself into a paper area, and by the way, I've added this as a separate layer. And you can rotate them. 0 or 9 rotates that way. There's other tools for rotating objects, which is here. Sometimes, just like a degree or two, or by degree, every 1 degree makes it move a little bit, and then that's a good process to get it where you want it. Or there is the tool that we've done in other videos, which is the nesting tool. So you can grab all of the components and you can nest it, and you can set your tolerances for your tool diameter, your clearance, best fit, whether you're going to let it mirror parts inside of each other and stuff like that. The one thing I don't like about this currently is I've got these lines, and they're separate lines, so that's it's going to treat all of those as parts. So this probably isn't going to work for this. It might work for other part layouts, but in this case, I'm pretty sure it's going to just explode them all into one space. So probably don't want to do this. So yeah, and it just, there went all my labels. My lines did go with my shapes, so maybe that works okay. You could just go back and reapply your labels if you knew what they were. So that might work okay. But it's said to me that it takes 3 sheets for this to happen. Maybe adjusting some of these parameters, maybe doing it yourself, you can find a little bit better fit. Sometimes it doesn't always give you the best thing, but it does work, so you can do something like that. Additionally, when you get to your framing parts, you can put your framing parts into a sheet a similar way, and you can have it set up here just so it cuts the different components for you, and you can have them laid out. At this point, you'd start generating tool paths for how you want to have these parts cut. Remember, you can have your setup with 2 different types of sheet material, in which case you would just have a different starting depth value here for going to your Luan as opposed to your 3/4 ply. So keep that in mind as you do your tool paths. If you group your shapes before you nest them, you can move everything together at once. Then you'll have to ungroup them for writing your tool paths.